Welcome to Wells ISD's Emergency Operation Plan training. Wells has adopted the ALICE program. ALICE stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. It's a program that is designed to give teachers more freedom in dealing with extreme lockdown situations. It's become necessary for schools to adopt a new system for dealing with school shootings. Simply huddling in the corner and lockdowns are not enough anymore. The reason why is because schools have become a much more dangerous place. Over the last 10 to 15 years, we've seen a great increase in the number of school shootings. The Virginia Tech University shooting is done by a South Korean student by the name of Cho. Cho was known to be an outsider. He was. There have been several reports on him as being kind of a strange person, and people were worried about him hurting others or hurting himself, but nothing was done. And ultimately, this is going to culminate in Cho shooting 49 people on campus with two semi-automatic pistols, a Walther P22 and a Glock 19. He kills 32 and wounds 17 by the time he's done. As with most of these cases, Cho is never captured by the police. Instead, as the police come in to arrest him, he shoots himself in the head with a pistol, committing suicide, dying instantly. This is the deadliest massacre or mass shooting on a college campus in U.S. history. This surpassed Charles Whitman's shooting rampage at the University of Texas in 1966, and it was massive. Let's talk about what was done well and what was done poorly with this one. Cho was first seen at 7 a.m. waiting outside the residence hall with guns. He's seen and is a danger. Police don't receive a call until 7:15 a.m. when the first shooting happens. An RA and one resident was killed in this first shooting. And then between 7:15 and 9:01, Cho goes back to his residence hall room, reloads his weapon, leaves a note behind, and begins his mass shooting. The residence hall where the first shooting occurred is put on lockdown at 8 a.m. and the Virginia Tech leadership team meets at 8:25 and do not lock down the rest of the campus until 8:52. Ultimately, the rampage is over with by 9:50. And we've got a situation here where this person was allowed basically to run free for almost 3 hours before he stopped. Now we'll talk a little later about the amount of time that it took for him to make most of his shootings, but this shows that the school was not prepared for an active shooter situation. The second mass shooting I want to talk to you about is Northern Illinois University. This happens in February of 2008, and in this case, the shooter was a student there who was described as kicking the door in at Cole Hall, entering the stage and shooting into the crowd, including the instructor. By the time he's done, he kills 5 students and enters 17 more. Now this happens at 3:05 p.m. By 3:11 p.m., his shooting spree is over with. He has killed himself. He's done this all in 6 minutes, and by 3:20 p.m., finally, the website reports that there's a possibility of a gunman on campus. I want you to think about that for a minute. It is 15 minutes after the shooting starts before a warning goes out there's a gunman on campus, and that is 9 minutes after the gunman has already shot himself. This shows us how fast we have to act. Northern Illinois University is also a lesson to us, because the students that survive because the shooter had run out of bullets, and he paused to reload. Students were heard shouting, "He's reloading," and they managed to escape during this time period. The lesson here: don't just sit there and huddle. Don't be in a lockdown situation if you have a chance to escape. The event that kind of launched us into the modern era of school safety is the Columbine High School massacre. It happens in April of 1999 at Columbine High School in Colorado. The two shooters, Harris and Klebold, and that's the last time I'll mention their name because I don't want to make these people famous, but the two shooters were known to be dangerous to themselves. They were outsiders. They were bullied by people. People had warned over and over that these kids needed to be watched. While their motives are not entirely known, it is speculated that they were looking to create a terror incident along the level of the bombing in Oklahoma City. So massive attacks. Let's talk about what these two shooters did. They arrive at Columbine High School at 11:10 a.m. Into the parking lot, and the first victims are shot outside at 11:19. So 9 minutes after arriving, they've already shot their first victim. A custodian radios the campus police saying that he needs assistance at 11:22. A minute later at 11:23, he makes an announcement that there is a female down in the senior parking lot. The police come, but they don't think it's a shooter. They believe that it was an accident where the person was struck by a car. Poor information here. We need to make sure that we've got good information. At 11:24, a call over the radio comes through reporting that there is a shooter in the school. By 11:26, officers are exchanging gunfire with them. 12 people have already been shot by this point. 2 are dead. So you're looking at this between 11:19, when the first shots happen, and 11:26, so 7 minutes, and they've already shot 12 people and 2 dead. Then we enter the library massacre, which is 11:29 to 11:36, 7-minute period where 22 more people are shot, 10 of which are killed. This is where you hear the famous 911 call. I'm not going to play it for you because it's rather disturbing, but you hear Patty Nilsson calling 911. She was a librarian, and she's saying in there that we're doing everything right. We have the students in lockdown. The students were locked down. They were huddled together just as we've been trained to do. And the two shooters came in and picked them off like they were targets, just sitting there. Again, proof that sometimes just sitting and huddling is not the best option. Between 11:36 and 12:08, these guys are free to roam the school. They're threatening students. And at 12:08, the two gunmen commit suicide, ending the Columbine massacre. What Columbine teaches us is that the danger is oftentimes not going to be an outside danger. It's not going to be somebody we don't know. It's going to be somebody we do know. It's going to be our own students or our own somebody with connection to the school, more than likely. That's something that we hadn't really thought of as a danger before Columbine, and we've had to rethink that since then. The incident that hits the hardest and closest to me, and probably most of you, is the Sandy Hook Elementary School incident. Sandy Hook was a mass shooting crime against innocent elementary students. We're talking about kids the age of 6 and 7 years old for the most part. Lanza was clinically depressed. He was known by people to suffer from from violent tendencies and depressive tendencies. He was also a big fan of weapons. And his parents apparently, his mother apparently did not have weapons in a locked gun case. Lanza, at 20 years old, shoots and kills his own mother sometime before 9:30 a.m. when he leaves the house, arriving at Sandy Hook Elementary at 9:35 a.m. He enters the school at 9:35. Within 1 minute, the school had already contacted 911 or 911, and the police were on their way. By 9:39, the police arrive on the scene. They hear the last shot at 9:40. Lanza shoots himself, kills himself at 9:40. And when the police enter the school at 9:44, they find 28 people shot inside the school. 20 of these were children between the age of 6 and 7 years of age. As horrific as this is, it could have been much worse. In one incident, the teacher did not huddle as had been taught, and instead had told her students to make a run for it. And while she was shot, her students, as moving targets, were not shot. They managed to escape. The lesson we get from Alice is that sometimes counterattack is necessary. Sometimes evacuation is necessary. What we don't want to do is huddle together on the floor. So what are the shooting statistics that we've seen? Virginia Tech, the mass of the shootings happened in 9 minutes. In 9 minutes, there were 47 total victims, 30 of those killed and 17 injured. Think about it for a minute. How long do you think it takes a police officer to arrive on your campus? We have to be ready to provide for our own defense until that time. At the Northern Illinois University, in 6 minutes, there are a total of 27 victims, 6 killed and 15 injured. Columbine High School, 17 minutes, 37 total victims, 13 killed and 24 injured. Out of this 17 minutes, 6 minutes of it took place in the library, which resulted in 12 injured and 10 dead. So things are happening rapidly. Sandy Hook Elementary, 5 minutes, 28 total victims, and 1 additional death with Lanza's mother prior to the rampage. Okay, we've seen the damage that can be done by a shooter. The question now is, what do you do about it? Alice is here to provide a framework for defending our schools. Alice was developed by a military and police officer whose wife was a school teacher. And following the Columbine incident, he asked his wife, "What do y'all do?" And she explained that they had a lockdown program that was designed to turn the lights off, lock the doors, and huddle in the corner. This did not seem adequate to him as a lawman, so he started looking for solutions, and he came up with this Alice system. Alice is there to maximize survivability by giving us options. It teaches us as staff to recognize, assess, and respond to threats. An active shooter scenario can happen literally anywhere. It's happened on school campuses, it's happened on nightclubs, it's happened on college campuses. We need to be ready for this. So what are we going to do? Alice is here to provide faculty, staff, and students the power to do something instead of just waiting to be a victim or a casualty in the affair. The first step of Alice is the alert step. This is the traditional step that we've always practiced. Just remember, give a little to get a lot. Or as they said in the Marine Corps, use the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. We'll use a variety of different methods of alert,
In the event that we have an intruder on campus, there will be an announcement over the loudspeaker, at which point you will enter a lockdown system. We'll talk about that later. And the office staff will contact the Head Start program and contact 911 as necessary. Information is the key to making good decisions. We will not use code words. We will always speak in plain English. We'll be standard and consistent, and we'll give as much information as possible. Someone will be watching the video, and in the event that the intruder is on the high school campus, they'll be making those announcements so the elementary campus will be able to evacuate the building. The second step of ALICE is the lockdown system. The traditional lockdown system is that you shut and lock the doors, you turn off the lights, and you huddle in the corner. Is this a sufficient standalone defense? ALICE suggests that it's not. Rather, they see lockdown as a starting point, but not the only point in the procedure. It's part of the process, not standalone. In the event that we enter lockdown, we're going to use what ALICE calls the lockdown plus procedure. Just as before, you will turn off the lights and lock the doors and move the students away from doors and windows. However, unlike in the past, the students will not be huddled in the corner. Students should spread out around the room, so if an intruder manages to get in, they're not all sitting in one spot as targets. Teachers will then be asked to barricade the door. Look around your room. Think in advance. What can you use to barricade the door? Can you take a belt and put it around the doorknob and tie it off to something, or a rope? Can you stack your filing cabinets or your desks in front of it? The key is make sure you put something there to slow down the intruder. Since most of our doors open into the hallway, this barricade is a little more difficult than it would be if they opened into the classrooms. Teachers should then look for alternate escape routes, doors, windows, whatever you can do. Think in advance of what you would do. If you're in the new building where the windows don't open, think about how could you break a window if you have to. Traditionally, you don't break a window by throwing a chair at it. You break a window by taking something small and sharp, hitting at the corner and pulling down to break the glass. Do not open the doors for anyone. Principals have keys. They can get in. If it's a law enforcement officer, they'll be provided with a key, or an announcement will be made saying that it's okay to leave the lockdown system. If no one else has called 911, dial 911 only when it's safe to do so. Here's some examples of some barricades that we could have. Think about what you could use in your room. What items can be used to barricade? What items in the classroom can be used to slow down an intruder?
The third step in the ALICE system is inform. Inform is nothing but a continuation of the alert system. It's a method designed to empower staff and students to make a decision by having real-time information. We should be passing on information through the phone system, through text messages, through whatever system we have, so our staff understands where an active shooter is. Under the Inform system, you could be made aware that an active shooter is on the school grounds, but not on your campus's grounds. And it might be safer for you to evacuate than to lock down and huddle. The fourth step in the ALICE program is counter. It's important to mention that each of these steps are not necessarily to be done in a given order. Counter and evacuate are choice methods. So let's look at counter. Counter is what you do when all else fails. If you're unable to evacuate or escape, and the shooter has broken through your barricade, he's in your room, your chance, or your best chance now, is to stand and fight rather than stay huddled. Why is this important? We've seen that through traditional lockdowns, people have been hesitant to fight back, and we have become habitual victims. Your active shooters are typically not high-skilled shooters. There's typically not somebody that's practiced a great deal. In most cases, these active shooters have gotten their training in video games. Well, if you think about the fact that police who are highly trained miss 70 to 80% of their shots in dynamic events, you can expect that an untrained active shooter is going to miss even more. So what do? You take counter steps. You try and find any way to distract the shooter and to interrupt the process of shooting. Whatever you do not sit quietly on the floor and wait to become a victim. There's a military strategy called disrupting the OODA loop. OODA, O-O-D-A, is observe, orient, decide, and act. Every one of us has this loop whenever we make a decision. We observe what's going on around us. We orient ourselves to the problem. We decide on an action, and only then do we act. If you can disrupt that OODA loop in any manner, you are starting that shooter over again. And one thing that students are good at, even elementary students, is creating chaos. And creating chaos disrupts that OODA loop. If you can rush the shooter, rush him. If you can knock the gun away and put it in a trash can, do so. If you can just have your students flee and escape in dynamic directions in a variety of different ways, do so. Whatever you can do to disrupt that OODA loop increases your chance of success, increases your chance of survival. The key to Alice is don't just sit there like those people did at Columbine in the library and get shot while you're huddled on the ground doing what you were trained to do in a lockdown procedure. The fifth step in Alice is evacuate. Escape and evacuation is the preferred response in the event of an active shooter scenario. Alice insists that occupants must have the authority to leave the building, an authority that teachers did not have in the Columbine shooting. Thus, in that Columbine library, students were left huddled up. When they could hear the shooting across campus, they had plenty of time to escape, but instead they stayed in a lockdown system until the shooters arrived and made the largest part of the shootings right there in that library. Only 2% of active shooter scenarios have involved more than one perpetrator. So the fear of if I escape, there's a second shooter out there is, well, I won't call it an unreasonable fear. It's statistically improbable. If you know the shooter is inside, get outside. If you know the shooter is outside, get inside. In the inform section, we should be getting announcements, we should be getting contacts, we should know where that shooter is. When you evacuate, make sure that you go to the rally points and reunification points that have already been established in your training. Make sure you evacuate with your hands up so the police know that you're not a shooter. And never ever use your car to evacuate. If necessary, climb out or jump out windows. If there is time, assist others in evacuation. When you get to your rally point, account for all of the occupants and begin getting that information to the central office. To sum up the Alice portion of this program, Alice is a proactive program, not a passive program. I like this chart because it shows us some lessons from Virginia Tech. If you look at this, room 206, there were 14 people present. This room did a traditional lockdown. 10 of those people were killed and 2 were wounded. Just next door in room 204, they went into a proactive lockdown plus system. 19 were in that room, and they jumped from the windows. In this case, only 2 were killed and 3 were wounded. You can see where this continues. You can go down to room 207 and 205, where they barricaded themselves. 207, 13 were present, 5 were killed. Room 205, 12 were present, 0 were killed. The lesson we get from here is that if you're passive, the fatalities are going to be much, much higher than if you're proactive and either evade or counter. More often than not, what we'll have as part of our drill are just standard procedures. So let's begin talking about the most common drill that's done in schools, the fire drill. In the event that Wells ISD has a fire drill, a bell or a buzzer will be signaled 3 times, or there will be an announcement in the event that the bells aren't working. We are now beginning a fire drill. Please exit the building. What you need to do is you need to exit through the nearest exit and move 50 feet away from the building. Teachers, you need to make sure that your students know both your primary and a secondary alternate route. And you need to teach this and practice this. It's important that this be done quickly. Last year we evacuated the whole school in 1 minute and 10 seconds. That was pretty impressive. Anytime we have a fire drill, we'll also have a reverse drill. A reverse drill will be signaled by 2 distinct rings or buzzers, or if you're somewhere where the bells can't be heard, it'll be signaled by radio between the administrators. What teachers need to do is to quickly and orderly return with their students to the classroom. This more than likely means the drill is over and we're just trying to get students back in the campus. But it may mean that a threat has been discovered outside and that it's necessary to get students off the playground or away from the buses and back to a secure area. We should always treat this as if it's a threat. In the event that a tornado is spotted anywhere near the Wells ISD campus, the intercom will be used to sound a bell or a buzzer, one long signal. In the event that the signals don't work, you'll hear an announcement. We are beginning a tornado drill. What you need to do as a teacher is move your students to either the most interior wall or a hallway wall, whichever spot provides more security from broken glass. Students should assume a crouching position, head against the wall, and continue to stay there in defense of flying glass, etc. Everyone should participate in these drills, faculty included. Emergency evacuation drills are used in situations such as chemical spills or something happening where students need to be off the campus as quickly as possible. An announcement will come over the intercom. It'll say, "Teachers, this is an evacuation drill. Please lead your class in exiting the campus." What you should do as a faculty member is immediately grab your emergency folder and take your class on one of the following routes. Plan A will be for PK and kindergarten to get on bus 1, first and second grade to get on bus 2, and for teachers to walk with the students from 3rd through 12th grade over to Falvey Methodist Church. Plan B will have the students gathering with the teachers that they're with or in their homerooms and getting on the assigned buses to go to Falvey Church. The importance to the emergency evacuation drill is that Falvey will be where parents will be able to pick up the students after the police have released them. Intruder on campus drills are the ones that are probably the most terrifying for us. If we have a person on campus that we think might be a threat to students, we will give the following announcement. Intruder in, and it will say where that intruder is. Intruder in the elementary campus, intruder in the Rock building, intruder in the high school campus. This will mean that you should secure your room immediately. Do not open the door for any reason. Try to make the room seem empty by turning off the lights. You need to keep the students calm and quiet and away from the door, but do not huddle. And do not open the door for any reason. Remember, your administrators have a key. If they need to get in, they can. At this point, you would go into the ALICE procedures that we went over earlier. I hope this has been helpful to everybody. I will leave this up on our Google Classroom so you can come back and take refresher courses as needed. Make sure you go take the quiz. You don't get credit for the class if you don't take the quiz. Thank you, guys.